Separate the real from the fake. See, we got to get back to love. If we get back to love, then that's when we're going to get back to us.
It seems like it's never enough. And what do you say when you're...
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of People Empowerment, where we would strive to change the conditions in our community. Today is another very special day, and we also have a very special guest. Now, my name is Nate Boyd, and I'm the host of People Empowerment. I am the people's advocate, and I'm here today to share some very important information with the people. Information about housing court. Matter of fact, we're going to have Housing Court 101, and we're going to ask the judge, because right now, today, we do have Judge Carney here with us. Judge Carney, how you doing, sir?
All right, Nate, I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm so glad to have you here. I brought you in here today so you could explain to me and to the people out there basically Housing Court 101, all the ins and out of it, what's it about, how they should come to court, what they should expect, information they should have, and so on. So I know you're the expert. Now just tell us, how long you been doing this, Judge?
I've been in housing court about a little over 2 years.
A little over 2 years.
Yes.
And what did you do before this?
Criminal court. I was criminal court judge for 19 years.
Okay, that's 21. And what did you do before that?
I was a attorney. I worked with the public defender's office for 10 years, and I had a private office as well.
So you've been a lawman pretty much all through the shop.
All through the whole, yes, all through my adult life.
You've been housing court judge for 2 years, and this is Housing Court 101. How much experience have you attained in that 2 years where you can really adjudicate housing court?
It's really very eye-opening. It's a lot more like a self-help court or how can we help you court. It's a lot like Judge Russell's court, which deals with addictions, and they try to focus on helping people get over their addictions. We're trying to get properties fixed. We're trying to get neighborhoods better. We're trying to get Buffalo back to its glory days when these homes were built, because Buffalo has a very old infrastructure.
Okay.
Buffalo's a very old city. It was one of the first cities developed in the Northeast. So we have a lot of unique problems, and it was very different for me to go from a criminal court setting to the setting that I'm in now, which is in housing court, where a lot of times you're not a judge. A lot of times you're trying to help the elderly who own properties. You're trying to help a family get through a death, and now they own the property. You're trying to get young people into the housing market. You're trying to work with the city in development, in fine collections, in law writing, for example.
It sounds like you're in the middle on both sides.
You are in the middle, and like I tell defendants in housing court, and it is a court, so we do have defendants. People are charged with quasi-criminal activity. By quasi-criminal activity, I mean it's if you're an individual and you're charged in housing court, you're subject to 15 days in jail.
Really?
On each violation that you're charged with.
Let me get that right,
Yeah.
Judge. And I want the people out there to make sure we get that right. So for every violation that's listed on a perspective of violations for a person to come in, an owner to come in, if he's found guilty on those violations, he can possibly be in prison for 15 days on each specific violation?
On each specific violations with certain limitations. On most of it, we have a maximum. It generally cannot exceed 45 days total. In some cases, it can't exceed the 15 days total. It depends on how the violations were written, how many different cases you have, etc. And then we have a lot of defendants. Most of our defendants are corporations. And of course, you can't put a corporation in jail. So then it becomes more of a civil case where only the fines are in play.
Okay.
And that's what gives us less teeth.
Now, are you pro-tenant or are you pro-landlord? Can I ask that?
you can ask that. We're not allowed to be pro either.
Okay.
When a landlord-tenant issue comes up, and housing court used to do all of the landlord-tenant cases. We don't do that anymore. That was an attorney that worked in the system who was assigned to Buffalo Housing Court. We had another attorney who worked in housing court. Both of those positions were cut out of the last budget cuts, which coincidentally happened 2 years ago, right just after I got there.
Oh, okay.
They did the budget cuts, and we lost one of our court clerks. So I had a staff of 5. Now I have a staff of 2. So the landlord-tenant issues have gone back to a regular rotation of what we call special term, and I still do that. I'm the first housing court judge to do the special term cases. That's 1 month a year when you do landlord-tenant. And
wait, just let me stop you for a minute because I want to make sure that the public is online. Landlord-tenant disputes.
Yes.
Where are they handled?
Those are handled in what we call special term. Each judge spends 1 month in special term.
Okay, so it never stops. Just judges take turns
It
every
never
month.
Stops.
Okay.
It's a rotating.
Okay.
During that special term issue or term, that judge will also be on call to the law enforcement 24 hours a day. That judge will also deal with all of the emergency civil motions to seize a bank account, to unseize a bank account. Special term basically means what has to be done right now. What has to be decided right now, not in 3 months, not in 2 months. These are motions that you deal with from lawyers on a civil nature, and you have to decide them immediately. Those come through special term.
Okay.
Trust me, it's not one of our more pleasant months in Buffalo City Court.
But there's always a judge in the special division, and they're always hearing landlord tenant, and they're always having them.
Yes.
Just different judges
all the time, different
every
judges,
month.
a new judge each month. Mostly because landlord-tenant issues don't tend to carry over. They tend to be heard in one morning at one time. Their eviction processes,
which we're going to get into.
Yeah,
too.
And I can speak to that because in 21 years I've done special term court at least 21 times. So I'm very familiar with the landlord-tenant issues. I lecture to groups of tenants. I lecture to groups of landlords. I try to especially go to the groups of landlords because getting groups of tenants together is almost impossible. And the tenants oftentimes, and it's a beautiful thing, are represented by the lawyer of a day. That's the Volunteer Lawyers Project.
Oh, really?
Those are lawyers that volunteer their time. We also have.
Wait, I'll cut you in. I got to get
go
you. Volunteer. Explain that a little bit more for the tenant council, please.
Volunteer lawyers are in Buffalo City Court in landlord-tenant special term every day. It may not be the same lawyer. Different law firms send attorneys there to represent indigent tenants, and then of course we have the legal aid bureaus that come in a couple days a week and take over the tough cases, the trials. They bring motions to set aside verdicts in landlord-tenant cases because they think an injustice may have been done or because a tenant couldn't make it that day. There was an emergency, there was a hospitalization, and they then bring motions to reopen.
Okay, now how does that work? Per se, I'm the tenant, and I come in to housing court, and I have an issue. Now, you sit up there, and you look at the issue, and you look at the issue and say, wait a minute, do you have a lawyer? And they say no. You say, well, I think you need to talk to him. Is that how it works?
There's an announcement made before the judge even comes out that there are attorney of the day here. They're in the hallway. They're set up at this table and this table. They actually have assistants that interview the tenants. They qualify the tenants. You, of course, must qualify. You have to be indigent to qualify. And then they move on from there. Those are usually the last cases we do because it takes the attorneys. You might have 2 attorneys and 2 staff members, and they have to interview 50, 60 people
and
find out what the issue is.
But there is somebody there to help.
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
There is somebody to help every day.
Okay, now what happened, Judge, was I let some people know that what I was gonna be doing about the housing court, and some people actually contacted me about some issues they were having with their landlords. Okay, I've also heard some things from landlords about tenants, but mainly the issues I have is with the tenants versus the landlords. So I was hoping that we could get into some of that. Now here I have a question from Anna, and she's from the East Side, and she asked, under what grounds can a tenant break a lease?
A tenant can break a lease if the landlord is in fact not doing everything according to the law. That doesn't mean fixing a light switch. That doesn't necessarily mean that your kitchen floor is uneven. Generally, you can break a lease or withhold rent on what we call issues of habitability: light, heat, rodent infestations, something that makes that apartment unlivable.
Hot water tanks.
Hot water tanks, of course. Your furnaces, like I said, heat, water, lights, electricity, the bare essentials, or your ceiling has fallen in or caved in. Those are very serious issues. The breaking of a lease is very difficult for a landlord or for a tenant. And I get the same question from landlords: how can we get these people out? They're a problem, they're an issue, they're loud, they're destructive. I'm trying to protect my property, but I have a lease.
Okay, good. That's pretty concise. Now, what happens when the lease runs out, but the tenant is still living in the house, and they haven't signed another lease, and then they run into an issue?
The previous lease issues will control, but it automatically becomes a month-to-month tenancy, meaning each month is a new tenancy. You pay your January's rent on January 1st. You have the protections for 1 month.
Okay.
So it's a month-to-month tenancy, and that works both ways. I mean, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. Most landlords and most tenants like the security of a lease. They feel more secure. They know where they're going to be. The landlords know who their tenants are going to be. Of course, non-payment of rent is an automatic breaking of a lease.
Can a landlord, now once the lease has been done, and now you're on month to month and you haven't renewed the lease, can a landlord decide for any reason whatsoever to remove the tenant, or they don't want the tenant there anymore once the lease has been done and they move to a month-to-month situation?
Yes. The landlord or the tenant can move out with 30 days notice. That's 30 days from the beginning of the lease to the end of the lease. In other words, from the first of the month. So neither a landlord nor a tenant can give a notice on the 15th of the month to be out on the 15th of the next month. It has to run from the first to the first, because that's what the tenancy has always been. So you must give 30 days notice before that new month begins.
Okay.
And then either the landlord or neither one needs a reason.
Okay. Now I want to, and not to be cutting you off, but I want to get everything in as quick as possible.
Go ahead and cut me off.
Please excuse me. Okay. Now you said you were talking about issues of habitability.
Yes.
And so is there a specific name for that, such as
warranty of habitability?
A warranty of habitability.
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody has a warranty of habitability.
Everybody meaning the landlords?
The tenants. All tenants have a warranty of habitability. That premise must be habitable. It must be safe, and it must be habitable. What violates a warranty of habitability? On top of the things we already discussed, unsafe structures or any fire hazard will violate it. Any safety hazard will violate it.
So if your furnace isn't working and the landlord hasn't fixed it in a reasonable amount of time once they've been notified, that is an issue.
Yes.
That deals with the warranty of habitability.
That is an issue.
I would seem to think that a hot water tank would be something of sanitary conditions.
Hot water, yes. Hot water, electricity.
Electricity.
Heat. Now, when does it cease to be an issue? Say your boiler breaks in July. Can you move out because you don't have heat? Probably not, because it's not an issue at that time.
Oh, I see. But in the wintertime,
it's not an issue at that time. Hot water is always an issue. Electricity is always an issue.
Well, okay, you know what? I hate to jump around, but speaking of the hot water, then while we're speaking on it,
let's get the questions answered.
Okay, great. Now, say a person, their hot water isn't working, well, furnace too, but I'll take the hot water, isn't working, and they notify the landlord, hot water tank isn't working.
Right.
How long does a landlord have to address the problem once they've been notified? What's a reasonable amount of time?
For hot water?
Well, yeah.
Right now.
Oh, right now?
Right now. Hot water is right now. You get somebody over there tomorrow to look at my hot water tank. I would say, for me anyway, 2 days later, I'm gonna start deducting rent.
Oh, 2 days later you're going to start deducting rent.
I'm going to start deducting.
Well, see, now what if you've moved from a lease to a month to month? This situation comes up, you start deducting rent, and then the landlord says, "Okay, I want you out."
That would be what we call for lack of a better term, it's a revenge eviction, and the judges will stop that. Once you get to court, they won't grant that eviction.
So you can decipher
Right.
what's going on.
We'll take testimony from the tenant. Does it solve the problem? Absolutely not, because now you're living in a place where your landlord wants to get rid of you. So
Judge,
you're in a hostile place.
Judge, I gotta cut it
good.
out for a minute. We're gonna have a quick commercial, and then we're gonna be back. So everybody, just keep paying attention, and we'll be right back on People Empowerment.
Very impressive, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. Thought he was pretty good.
I think we've got enough color around here. 2 points. And who's next?
You drop this.
Imagine the power of one voice. Find yours at freedomcenter.org.
Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're back, and I'm back here with the judge. Ask the Judge, Housing Court 101. When we just broke off for the commercial break, we were talking about, I said to you, what happens if they move to month? The landlord is mad now because the tenant has reduced the rent until the problem was addressed, and so they decide they want the tenant out. And you were saying something like that's a revenge eviction?
Yes. You can't evict somebody because they called the health department. You can't evict somebody because they complained that you don't have heat. It's always a balancing act. It's always something that judges will struggle with. That's why once the eviction is filed, the people are in front of us. A landlord can come in front of me. This is how I do it. I will tell the landlord, no, your eviction is no good. You didn't have any heat. You didn't fix it fast enough. And you can't evict the person now because you're mad at them. But then I'll ask the two parties, how do you want to work this out?
Okay.
I mean, how long do you really want to stay in this property? How long, do you need to move? You don't want ever to create a hostile workplace. You don't want to create hostility in where you live. And it's very difficult for people to move. Some people need more time to move.
Especially in the wintertime.
Yeah, if Donald Trump is the tenant, I don't have to give Donald time to move. He can move anywhere he wants to, anytime he wants to. But for most part, we're dealing with people that are not, wealthy folks. They're struggling to make it. They're struggling to make it month to month. And you try to take all that into consideration.
What about when they, and we're just going to touch this for one more minute and we got to move on because I got some more things. But what about in the situation where you've withheld the rent and then the landlord has fixed the situation and they say, well, I want all my money. You have to give me all my money.
If it's in front of the judge, it's up to the judge to determine that month's rent.
But the tenant can withhold it
have-
until we come to court.
Right. The tenant can withhold it, but you have to have it.
Don't spend it.
You can't say I withheld the rent, but I don't have it because I had an emergency last month.
Okay.
You got to have the rent when you come in.
All right, remember that, people. Remember
you gotta
that.
have the rent. And if you've withheld $650 rent and you were without heat for a day or two, don't think you're going to not pay rent for that whole month.
Right.
And the landlord don't expect to get that whole month's rent.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you can take $50 off it to make it more fair for the people being uncomfortable, and we'll exchange that rent right in court if you have it with you.
Well, what if the situation takes 2 weeks or 3 weeks without?
Well, then you might be without rent. The landlord might go that whole month without rent. If you're in January in Buffalo, and a tenant calls you up and says, I don't have any heat, and you take 2 weeks to get somebody out there to fix it, you better believe I'm taking at least half your month's rent. At least. I may keep the whole month's rent because of the hardship that those people went through.
Had to endure, yeah.
You know.
Okay.
And document everything. You're going into a courtroom.
That's what I'm about to get on. Document everything.
Everything. Have your receipts. Have your bank accounts available so we can see the money is there. Have, pictures of the furnace that's not working, or the gas meter. You can take pictures of your gas meter in January and it's not moving.
That's very important.
Yes, it's very important to have evidence, because remember, when you walk into a courtroom, that judge doesn't know you. Right. And they don't know the landlord, and they don't know your neighbors who are going to testify. We're hearing from all of these people for the first time. We're meeting a lot of these people for the first time. So whoever has the best documentation is going to really have that edge in a courtroom.
Have you ever actually put someone in jail for non-compliance? Yes.
In housing court, yes, I have.
Wow.
I try not to, but I have put people in jail for non-compliance. I've put people in jail for not showing up in court. I've fined people for not showing up in court, because all of this costs money. It's not, I tell people, I use phrases to try to get housing court across to people, and I try to stress the fact that it's a real courtroom. I'm a real judge. That's a real court officer with a real gun. You have to be here when you're scheduled to be here.
Absolutely.
It's not a matter of convenience or not convenience. It's the same as a petty larceny charge. It's the same as a disorderly conduct charge.
You're in court.
When that criminal court judge tells you to be in court, people show up. When that housing court judge tells people to be in court, for some reason they tend to ignore it a lot more. And I try to tell them on the first day, it's not a hair salon. We don't have walk-ins welcome.
Understood. Now, what about lead paint, Judge? Talk to us about lead paint right quick.
Lead paint is an issue all through Buffalo, and generally that's done by the county health inspectors.
Okay.
They go to certain areas in the city and they test the university district. Then they may test an area on the west side. They may test an area on the east side. And they're constantly moving through the city. And when you're talking about lead paint, you're really going to get all people in court. It's not just landlords. Lead paint affects homeowners. It affects business owners. It affects landlords. It affects everybody in that area, and the county will go, they'll take the paint off the house, they'll test the paint. If it has lead that's too high, basically any house that has paint on it from the 50s, 60s, even through the 70s, has lead in it, and it has to be removed in a certain manner, and it has to be repainted.
Wait a minute. Removed? You mean you can't just paint over it?
No, it has to be removed.
Wait a minute. Now let's get that clear for the city, because I think that's important. You're telling me that if a house has lead paint on it, you can't just go and scrape it and paint it?
Not only do you have to remove that lead paint, but you have to have a lead paint removal certificate to know how to deal with the paint chips.
Even if it's your own house?
Yes. There's specific ways to deal with the paint chips. The county, remember, is reacting to a sick child. They'll get a call of a sick child, or one of the hospitals will report a lead-based poisoning. The county health inspectors will then go and blitz that entire area, not just the house in question, but every house in that area, because the effects of lead-based paint are horrendous. Much more horrendous than people ever think they are.
So now when the inspector comes up and I'm out with my buddies and we're painting my house and we're out scraping it and chips are dropping everywhere and the inspector comes up, what happens?
They'll rewrite you for the improper removal of those paint chips.
What do you mean rewrite me?
They'll write you more summonses because obviously nobody there has taken the class. You can't even remove that lead-based paint from your own house until you have a certificate. Now that class takes one Saturday morning.
Oh, okay.
It takes one Saturday morning. Anybody can take it. It doesn't require any expertise. And basically they teach you how to remove that paint and then how to remove it from your property. Because if you leave those chips on the ground, the dogs are going to get sick, The animals are going to get sick. The kids might get sick because that lead it can seep into your lawn, into your backyard.
Everybody, listen,
It's dangerous.
Look, everybody, I'm Nate Boyd, the People's Advocate, absolutely getting you this important information you need. You need to go on my website and get this information. Now, the judges just told us that there's a lead abatement class, I would assume that's what it's called, a one-day class. And it's free? So, Your Honor, just tell us about it one more time so the people know, if you could tell them exactly, because I'm interested, too, in that.
Sure.
When is it?
I don't exactly know
How do they find out?
which day it is. They can go on Erie County's website. The dates that the class is given will be listed. We have the information in housing court. I have a chief inspector from the city and a chief inspector from the county in my courtroom almost every single day. We have all the pamphlets for lead-based removal. It'll tell you when the paint class is given, who to call,
That's awesome.
And they're given very often.
Where is your court? What floor is it? Where is it?
It's Buffalo City Court on the 6th floor of Buffalo City Court, and it's part 14 of Buffalo City Court.
Part 14.
Yeah, and we're there every day. And if you just want to pick up the information, that's fine. Come on in. It's a public courtroom. Anybody can come in.
That's
Anybody
awesome.
can come in and watch. We try to keep it as informative as we can.
It's good information.
We try to deal with the cases just like any case in court, which to me it's very important that they're treated as individuals. So the homeowner, the elderly homeowner, or the homeowner that comes in is given a little bit more latitude in getting that lead-based paint removed and repainted. It's an expensive process. We understand that. If you're making money from the property, for example, you're a landlord, we want it fixed immediately. We really want it fixed immediately.
How much can a fine be if you got
up
paint
to $1,500 per charge?
per charge?
Per charge. Now, lead-based paint is $500 per charge. The city violations, which are mostly structural, that would be $1,500 per charge.
Wow, that's pretty serious. Yeah. Now, Judge, let me just say to you, we just got a couple minutes left here. We winding down. I know this is an election year. And I know you're in an election, I know you got the election coming up. I wanted to talk to that, but you see, we don't have time. I wanted to get some more into this, but you see how time flies when you're having fun?
We can do it again anytime you want.
Well, I was hoping that you would say that because in the next...
We didn't even scratch
2 or 3
surface,
weeks.
Nate.
Good. Well, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I want to get you back in here so that we can really finish up a little bit on this housing court, and then we could get into you, the judge, why you want to be elected again, what you're doing for the people. Like, I'm the people's advocate, you're the people's advocate
I love
too.
doing this?
Yeah, you're the people's advocate also.
From my first day. I love going to work every day. And I'm going to tell you something. If you want more information, we do a lot of block club meetings. I can't do every block club because there's 500 of them in the city of Buffalo, but we will do the inspectors. We have now community police officers that focus on this type, on housing court activities.
So the organizations need to reach out to you for this? Is that how it works?
We do a police district. Each 5 districts, we have a massive meeting. Everybody's invited. They're posted. We do large block clubs. I know I have one coming up. There's a group in South Buffalo. There's a group in Fillmore. I just did a community meeting with a lot of block club leaders over on the west side. Talk to your block club leaders. They'll know when these meetings are. They're public. I'm up there. I'm a target, and I'm glad to be there.
Okay, Judge, I'm glad to hear that because I'm sure block clubs are paying attention, and hopefully they'll get out to you because that's very important for everybody. Now, I got to tell you, we're winding down. This is the last minute. I'm going to give you like 10 seconds to say goodbye to the people, and I'm going to finish it up. Go ahead.
10 seconds to say goodbye. 15 seconds. Listen, everybody, we work hard. We don't give up on anything. The building inspectors in Buffalo, there's 50 of them working what we do, and they answered 19,000 311 calls last year.
That's it, Judge.
These are hardworking guys.
Hey, look, I'm Nate Boyd. This is People Empowerment. It was a pleasure, absolute pleasure having the judge here today. I'm looking forward to the judge coming back again in the future. And until we come back to you, remember this. I'm Nate Boyd, People Empowerment. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention.
Thank you, Nate.
Oh, that was a pleasure. That was a pleasure, Your Honor.